Look at the quietest person in the room, the one who never seems to panic when things go wrong, the one who absorbs bad news with a slight nod, a steady gaze, and an almost unnatural stillness. Society looks at this person and calls them strong. People admire their resilience. They say things like, "You are so brave," or "I do not know how you handle it all." But there is a fundamental misunderstanding about what that stillness actually is. It is not peace. It is not a sudden, enlightened mastery over human emotion. It is the heavy, suffocating silence of a nervous system that has simply run out of the metabolic energy required to panic. When you have survived too much, when the ground has fallen out from under you more times than you can count, your brain fundamentally changes its operating system. You do not become a warrior by choice. You become a vault. The architecture of your mind shifts from thriving to pure, raw survival. Every alarm bell in your head has rung so loudly and for so long that the wires eventually burned out. So you sit there, looking completely fine, while carrying a ghost town inside your chest. You have mastered the art of existing without taking up emotional space. You do not cry because crying requires a belief that someone will come to comfort you, or that the release of tears will actually change the outcome. When both of those beliefs are shattered repeatedly, the body adapts. It shuts down the luxury of feeling to protect the core function of living. But this adaptation hides an invisible cost that you are paying every single day. Think about how the world interacts with someone who has survived too much. They come to you for advice and dump their problems on you because you seem stable. You become the emotional landfill for other people's inconveniences while your massive traumas remain unspoken. You are constantly misread as a pillar of strength, when in reality, you are just a petrified tree. People assume you have an unlimited capacity for stress. They do not realize your capacity is actually zero, but your tolerance for pain has become dangerously infinite. When someone complains to you about a minor inconvenience, you do not feel anger. You feel a profound distance. You watch them get upset over things that seem laughably trivial, realizing you no longer speak the same emotional language as the rest of the world. You are separated from them by an invisible wall of unspeakable experiences. They see you listening patiently, and they think you are deeply empathetic. But the truth is, you are not listening with empathy. You are listening with a detached anthropological curiosity, observing them from the other side of a thick glass wall. This brings us to the quiet, devastating cost of your survival. The cost is that you are no longer participating in genuine human exchange. You are just managing incoming data and predicting threats. You smile when you are supposed to smile and nod when it is socially appropriate. But behind your eyes, nobody is truly home. The lights are on, but the house is completely empty. This is the phenomenon of high-functioning dissociation. You are a ghost operating a human machine. You do the laundry, you answer emails, you pay bills, but none of it feels real. The texture of everyday reality has slipped through your fingers. And the terrifying part is nobody notices you are gone, because your ghost is so competent at mimicking the correct responses to keep people away. Imagine your nervous system as an incredibly complex electrical grid. When a catastrophic event hits, it is like a massive power surge. If these surges happen once or twice in a lifetime, the grid handles it, maybe a few fuses blow, but the system resets. But when tragedy after tragedy strikes, when the trauma is relentless and overlapping, the grid realizes it cannot survive another surge. So it does the only logical thing to prevent a complete collapse. It trips the main breaker. It cuts the power to the entire emotional sector of your brain. This is the biological mechanism of emotional numbness. Your amygdala, the alarm bell of your brain, realizes that screaming into the void is wasting precious metabolic energy. So it stops screaming. You do not feel the agonizing, crushing weight of the pain anymore, which feels like a victory of survival. But here is the devastating, hidden cost of that biological adaptation. The nervous system is not a surgical instrument. It is a blunt tool. It cannot selectively numb only the agonizing despair, while leaving your capacity for joy intact. The breaker shuts off everything. When you kill the pain, you accidentally kill the joy, the passion, the warmth, and the simple thrill of being alive. You start to notice that the food you used to love tastes like nothing. The music that used to move you to tears is just noise in the background. You look at a beautiful sunset and your brain registers the colors, but your heart feels absolutely nothing. The world becomes a flat, two-dimensional photograph. You are technically safe, but you are trapped in a sensory winter, and this sensory winter is incredibly lonely. You sit in rooms full of people laughing, and you intellectually understand that a joke was made, so you stretch your facial muscles to mimic a smile, but the vibration of that laughter never penetrates your skin. You are stranded on an island of your own survival, watching the ships of normal human experience sail past you in the distance. Deep down, a terrifying thought begins to take root in the back of your mind. You survived the fire, but you are starting to wonder if the person you were burned down with the house. Consider the profound biological intelligence of what is happening to you right now. Society tells you that feeling nothing is a symptom of being broken. The medical world labels it as a disorder, a failure of your emotional regulation. But let us look at the raw mechanics of your nervous system. You are not broken at all. In fact, you are experiencing an absolute masterpiece of evolutionary engineering. Your body is doing exactly what it was designed to do. When trapped in an inescapable threat environment, it is preserving your core organs by starving your peripheral emotions. This is the structural jolt you need to understand about your own identity. You have spent years thinking you are a defective human being because you cannot cry at a funeral or feel joy at a wedding, but your brain does not care about social etiquette. It only cares about keeping your heart beating until tomorrow. The mechanism of dissociation is essentially your brain hitting the eject button on your consciousness. When the physical or emotional pain crosses a specific threshold, the brain realizes that the conscious experience of this pain will cause a systemic collapse. So it literally unplugs you from your own body. You float above yourself, watching your life happen to a stranger. This is where the true terror of your identity crisis begins. Because if you are not the person feeling the things happening to your body, then who are you? You become an observer in a life that you no longer own. The trauma did not just hurt you, it evicted you. You are a tenant who has been locked out of their own house, staring through the windows at the furniture you used to sit on. And the longer you stay locked out, the more comfortable the cold pavement outside becomes. You start to fear the idea of going back inside, because to go back inside, to plug the emotional grid back in, means you have to feel the entire backlog of pain that you bypassed to survive. The numbness is no longer just a shield, it has become your entire personality. You are terrified that if the numbness shatters, there will be absolutely nothing left underneath. This brings us to a devastating inversion of how you view your own identity. You have spent your entire life believing that the numbness is a hollow space, an absence of feeling, a void where your humanity used to be. But neurologically speaking, numbness is not an empty room. Numbness is an incredibly dense, hyperactive fortress. It requires a staggering amount of metabolic energy to actively suppress your natural emotional responses every single second of the day. You are not empty. You are suffocating under the weight of an invisible, high-security vault. Think about what this means for your exhaustion. You wonder why you are perpetually tired, why sleeping for 10 hours does not cure the bone-deep fatigue that haunts your every step. It is because your nervous system is working overtime, running a massive background program to ensure that no triggering data breaches the firewall. The quietest version of you is actually the most exhausted version of you, and here is where the identity loop completely destabilizes. If you are devoting all of your subconscious energy to holding the door shut against your own memories, who is actually living your life? You begin to realize that the person interacting with your friends, doing your job, and brushing your teeth is not you. It is just the security guard you hired to protect the vault. The real you is locked inside, perfectly preserved in the exact moment the trauma occurred, waiting for a signal that it is finally safe to come out. But the security guard does not know how to read the safe signal. Its only directive is to block all incoming traffic. So, you start to perceive safety not as a relief, but as a terrifying threat. When someone actually offers you genuine love or a stable environment, the security guard panics. Peace feels like a trick. Calmness feels like an ambush. because your mechanism for survival has completely hijacked your capacity to recognize a non-threatening reality. You are rejecting the very thing you are starving for because your biological armor is welded to your skin, and you no longer know where the metal ends and your flesh begins. You stare at the mirror and realize that the impenetrable strength everyone applauds is actually a prison sentence you never agreed to serve. Let us expand this lens and look at how this biological adaptation plays out in the wider world around you. You are existing in a society that fetishizes resilience. Everywhere you look, there are messages celebrating the person who can weather any storm, the one who never breaks down, the one who carries the weight of the world on their shoulders, and still shows up for work on Monday morning. But society only loves the aesthetic of your survival. It has absolutely no interest in the agonizing mechanics of how you actually achieved it. People are deeply comforted by your stoicism, because your silence allows them to avoid dealing with the messy, inconvenient reality of human suffering. When you do not fall apart, you make everyone else feel safe. You become the designated shock absorber for your family, your friends, and your workplace. They pour their anxieties into your quiet demeanor, completely unaware that they are pouring water into a glass that shattered years ago. You normalize this dynamic because being useful is the only way your brain knows how to simulate a connection with other human beings. But this constant performance creates an unbearable friction between who you appear to be and the absolute desolation you feel inside. You are universally recognized as the strongest person in the room, yet you secretly feel like the most fragile, hanging by a thread so thin that a single unexpected word could snap it. This brings us to a crucial realization about the cost you are paying. Your emotional numbness is not a flaw in your character. It is a highly successful, biologically necessary strategy that kept you breathing when the world tried to crush you. You must normalize this within yourself. You did not fail at being human. You succeeded at surviving an environment that was fundamentally hostile to your humanity. The lack of feeling is the ultimate proof of how intensely you were forced to feel in the past. But here is where the narrative becomes incredibly complicated. By successfully adapting to a nightmare, you have made yourself incompatible with a normal, peaceful life. You have built a psychological immune system that is so aggressive, it attacks the good things right along with the bad. When someone offers you genuine affection, your nervous system registers it as a trap. When you finally have a quiet evening with nothing to worry about, your brain floods your body with adrenaline because it assumes the silence is just the predator holding its breath before the strike. You are trapped in a paradoxical loop where the absence of tragedy feels more terrifying than the tragedy itself, because at least in the chaos, you know exactly what the rules are. Your identity is so deeply intertwined with being a survivor that you do not know how to simply be a person. You look at people who have lived relatively untraumatized lives, and you feel a strange mix of envy and profound alienation. They are speaking a dialect of lightness and optimism that your brain simply cannot translate. You are a war veteran standing in the middle of a civilian party, hyper-vigilant, scanning the exits, while everyone else is dancing. You watch them complain about trivial inconveniences, like a delayed flight or a spilled cup of coffee, and you realize the chasm between your reality and theirs is insurmountable. They have the luxury of assuming the world is inherently safe, an assumption that was violently stripped away from you a long time ago. The profound tragedy is that the very armor that saved your life is now the exact thing preventing you from actually living it. You are caught in the agonizing space between the war that ended and the peace you cannot let yourself trust. This is the ultimate trade-off you have been forced to make without ever signing a contract. You traded the terrifying vulnerability of being human for the absolute invincibility of a fortress, and the fortress works flawlessly. Nothing can hurt you anymore. But here is the agonizing truth about invincibility. It is nothing more than solitary confinement disguised as strength. You are perfectly protected, yet completely alone inside your own mind. The biological mechanism that saved you, the brilliant overriding of your amygdala that shut off the power grid to keep the core systems running, has now become the very thing starving you of oxygen. Your nervous system is not broken, it is simply functioning on an outdated map. It is deploying wartime survival tactics in a peacetime environment. It scans a quiet room, and flags the silence as a tactical disadvantage. It looks at a person offering you genuine love and labels them as a high-level security threat, because love requires you to lower the drawbridge. And lowering the drawbridge is the one thing your system is programmed to never do again. This partially explains why your brain rejects happiness so aggressively. It is not that you do not deserve joy, or that you are fundamentally incapable of feeling it deep down. It is that your biological firewall filters out joy, because joy is unpredictable, and to a deeply traumatized nervous system, unpredictability equals death. So you are left in this strange liminal space. You have successfully navigated through the darkest, most destructive chapters of your life, emerging on the other side physically intact. But the identity of the survivor is slowly suffocating the identity of the person you were actually supposed to become before the pain started. You look at your hands and wonder if they will ever hold something without secretly preparing to drop it. You wonder if you will ever be able to sit in a room and just exist, without mapping out the exits or anticipating the next disaster. The armor is so incredibly heavy now, and the silence inside the helmet is deafening. You know exactly how to survive the end of the world. You have done it a dozen times. But you have absolutely no idea how to live on a regular Tuesday afternoon. And the terrifying question that keeps you awake at night is not whether another tragedy will strike, but whether you will still recognize yourself if the tragedy never comes. So, here is the absolute truth about your strength. You did not ask to be this resilient. You were forged in a fire that should have burned you to the ground, and you walked out carrying the ashes of the person you used to be. The numbness, the distance, the exhaustion, they are not signs that you are broken. They are the battle scars of a nervous system that sacrificed everything to keep your heart beating. You survived the war. You won the agonizing battle of your own existence. But your nervous system simply does not know that the war is over yet. It is still standing guard at the gates, waiting for an enemy that has already gone home. And maybe the hardest part of your journey is not surviving the next tragedy. Maybe the most terrifying thing you will ever do is slowly teaching your body that it is finally safe enough to fall apart. Because the identity of the person you were before the pain is still trapped inside that vault, and releasing them means feeling the terror of the world all over again. You do not have to fix everything today. You do not have to force yourself to feel the joy or the pain right this second. Just recognize the armor you are wearing. Take a deep, slow breath. Drop that heavy armor for just a single second in the comments below. What are you so deeply tired of carrying entirely on your own?